Alex has created an instrument to measure what they look at, and only after the fact realized, hey, wait, we need to do a validated, reliable instrument. They hadn't, that ship has sailed. But what would you suggest is important in relation to choosing an instrument to measure your constructs or your things that you're trying to assess? Any advice you can give us on instrument selection, and what do we do in cases where maybe we made a mistake and we missed something? How can we
Yeah.
handle that?
Yeah. So let's talk about scales. I always recommend that my clients seek a previously validated scale if one is available to you. There are so many scales out on the internet and you can find them. There are websites that list them, usually kind of by industry. So you can find like your industry's website that does scale work. You'll find them in the literature review. You'll find scales that other people have used or that other people have developed. Why is that better? Because that takes care of your reliability. You don't have to go through the testing and the additional statistical tests. You have to check for assumptions and things like that as you analyze your data, right? But you don't have to prove that your assessment is reliable and valid. It's already done. And you can just cite that paper and move forward. A lot of times, this also requires you to reach out to an author and get permission to use a scale, which I think is great because as a researcher myself, I love when someone contacts me and says, I was reading your paper, can we talk about it? And most researchers do as well. And so it gives you an opportunity to engage with that real human being. You know, we see all these names in our literature reviews and our reference list. Those are real people. And it gives you a chance to engage with that real person who is soon to be your colleague. The other thing is it saves you a lot of time because you don't have to develop your own. So let's talk about developing your own. Occasionally, you have to do that. I had to do that. I developed an instrument for my dissertation. It added 6 months to my workload. I was able to do that because I had brought some graduate credits with me. So I had a little more time to play with in my window. And so I was able to take the time to do that. But that is a lot of work. It's a huge process. It requires multiple samples. So if you're thinking about, I'm going to have to interview survey 300 people, well, you really need like 900 people because you've got to validate that survey. You've got to run it through a population twice. You've got to filter people out, prove that it works. You might have to make changes, which means you then have to run it through another validation. So like for mine, I had a segment, just one portion that was not reliable after the first round. And so I just didn't use it. I struck it right out of the survey because I was like, I do not have the time or emotional capacity to do another round to try to save this section. And I kind of thought it was redundant. I didn't really need it. So we took it out. But that kind of stuff happens when you develop your own survey. The other thing, if you're going to develop your own survey, you need to talk to your advisor early about that because your advisor may or may not have the skills and capacity to help you do that. That is not something that a lot of us are taught very deeply. That's some pretty deep methodology to do a reliability study. And so if your advisor is not really sure about that, then we need to have that conversation. Also, if you have a methodologist assigned to you, you want to talk to that person about that. Make sure that they are skilled in that area before you jump off and go in that path. So my general blanket advice, find a scale.
So just a question to follow up. If we want to contact the author about a paper and a scale, where do we find their information? How do I know who to contact?
So first, most research studies are going to have a contact information box somewhere on the paper. And so most researchers, like for my research, I use a personal email address. That way, no matter what my institution is, you can always contact me. And I know like that's the email address that's listed on things. So I will never close that email address because it exists for that purpose. Other places to look, you could just do a Google search and find them because their institution, wherever they are, will have them listed somewhere. ResearchGate is a great place. All of you should be engaged in ResearchGate because it's like social media for researchers. We post our papers, we connect with other people. It's also a great place to get a paper if you can't find it, like it's behind all these paywalls. You can just contact the person through ResearchGate, and ResearchGate has like a cool mechanism where you can like upload your papers and then you just go, yeah, I'll share that. And you just click a button and it shares really easy. So that's a cool one. And then also ORCID. If
Mm.
you are going to become a researcher, you think you're going to do more research than just your dissertation. At some point, you're going to be asked to create an ORCID ID. I mean, ORCID is like, it's kind of like the DOI of the researcher. And so we have ORCID accounts. If you were to look up my account, you could find me. It would list all the studies that I've ever published that are linked to my account. And you could contact me through the ORCID platform. So there's a lot of ways to find a researcher. And I would say, don't be afraid to do that. We love that.
Yes, we do. If you message anyone about their research that they've published, they're excited because at minimum, it's a citation for them. More often than not, they're just really passionate about sharing what they've done research on. And I know if anyone wants to ask about social immunity in insects, please send me an email because that's my topic of choice.